Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mings, and ever since releasing my video about the Reboot Camp, I've been contacted by a lot of developers interested in making an Advanced Wars indie game. I haven't had time to get back to all of them yet, but I figured that in this video I would outline my plans for what I think such a game would look like. I still don't know if I have the time or resources to begin working on such a project anytime soon, but it is definitely something I'd enjoy doing in the future. So you can consider this video my initial vision for the game, my dreams and expectations for such a project. Now, before I get started, I know I'm going to get some comments about this, so I just want to address it right away. I am aware that there are other developers who are working on their own Advanced Wars games. Commander Wars, Warside, and many others have already been pitched to me privately. These are great projects, and I wish their developers the best of luck. But I have a very specific vision for how I would like my game to be, and I just don't want to hop onto someone else's project. This video is about the Advanced Wars game I would like to make. Now, let's begin with the basics. What kind of game would this be? I'm definitely thinking a PC game, but I'd also love for it to be playable on mobile, with cross-platform support. I'm not opposed to it running on a browser like Advanced Wars by web, but Wars World is already doing that, and I don't really feel like just emulating it. The most important thing for me is that the game is easy to access. Honestly, the more ways it is available to play for people, the better. Now, let's talk about how I want this game to look. I obviously want it to be very similar to Advanced Wars, recognizable at a first glance and very familiar to anyone who's played it. But the graphics also need to be different enough so that it doesn't risk falling under copyright from Nintendo. I can't simply borrow their assets, I would have to make my own. But I would definitely want it to be a 2D sprite-based game. I'd want the units to look as similar to Advanced Wars as possible without getting into shaky territory. I just love these graphics, and I think they're absolutely timeless. To be honest, I wouldn't mind a program that looks and feels like Demon Hunter's Advanced Wars Replay Viewer. I love the way the menus slide in, I really enjoy the way the maps pops into view, and I think a program that feels like this would be very ideal for the game I want to make. As for the core gameplay itself, it would be a near copy of Advanced Wars 2, down to the exact same numbers, but borrowing the best elements from Dual Strike and Days of Ruin. The units and their damage values would be largely unchanged. Infantry would do 55% damage to other infantry, and you would have all the usual stuff you're used to, such as infantry costing 1,000 funds, tanks costing 7,000, anti-air costing 8,000, etc. This is because I believe the original Advanced Wars games are so well designed that there's very little need to change the fundamentals. There are definitely a few minor things I would like to look into, such as making missiles more viable, making naval units less pricey, and I would look into balancing small things like maybe making recons a tad bit better at what they do, and I also wouldn't mind incorporating a few units from Days of Ruin and Dual Strike. Other mechanics like terrain and defense stars would also pretty much be the same. I feel like the original Advanced Wars games pretty much nails this. Once again, I might borrow some new terrain from Days of Ruin to spice up some maps, such as ruins, wastelands, but also things like radar towers, which grants vision. I might also borrow some ideas from Super Famicom Wars, such as railroads and forts. This is because I don't see as much harm in adding new terrain types, because map makers can simply opt to exclude them from competitive maps. New terrain types are a lot less intrusive than adding new units, for example. Now, speaking of maps, I would definitely love a feature that allows you to copy-paste a map from Advanced Wars by web into the game. Of course, this would require some cooperation with the developers there, and we would make sure that the original map creator is properly credited. Now, as for the COs, this is probably where I'd have to deviate the most from classic Advanced Wars. These characters are the intellectual property of Nintendo, which means I cannot copy them. Therefore, I'm going to go down a similar route that the game Heroes of Newerth did when copying Dota, for those who remember that. I want the COs to be references to their originals, but still different enough to not fall under copyrights. As for how the COs will work mechanically, I'm going to borrow a page out of the rulebook of the fan hack Advanced Wars Returns, and instead of giving each CO a normal and a superpower, I will give each CO 2 normal powers, one based on utility, another on power, and they can be freely chosen between every time the power meter is full. I also want every CO to have a day-to-day power, even if it's a small one. COs that are just balanced around their powers are boring in my opinion. Just to give you guys a general idea of my design for these COs, I have a few dossiers here that you can look at. I want to give a big thank you to Sev, who helped AI generate the art for these commanders. If you want to take a look at the dossiers in greater detail, you can pause the video. Now, these are just ideas. These COs and their numbers are not final. I've literally just gender bent existing Advanced Wars COs and based their toolkit around their old one. However, the purpose of this demonstration is to highlight the general design idea I'm going for. I want to have simple but easy to understand dossiers, numbers that don't go too high, but still try to make each CO feel distinct and unique from one another. The goal is to have a big roster of available COs that can all be played competitively against each other. I realize that this might be a fever dream, and it will never be possible to make a game that is 100% balanced. But with enough playtesting and enough input from the community, I believe we can get the game into a state where most COs are viable. Now, let's get into some of the game mechanics. With each CO having 2 normal powers, I would still allow play that allow excess power charge to be stored up. So I would let CO powers charge above 100% of their meter, maybe all the way up to 150 or even 200%. I'd also keep the plus 10% boost to firepower and defense whenever a power is activated. I just think it's a nice little mechanic that helps you break through walls. And I'll definitely keep the stacking 20% penalty for each activation. But since I am balancing all COs to be roughly on the same level, I also think that all CO powers should be equal in costs. I'd say around 30 to 35,000 funds, similar to 3 or 4 stars in the original Advanced Wars games. One big change that I might consider in my game is reworking the luck mechanic. In Advanced Wars, units deal 0 to 9% extra damage in battle, which adds a bit of RNG to the game. I'm tempted to copy over the mechanic as it is, as I think it's important to gameplay, especially since it allows infantry units to finish off wounded vehicles on low HP, which helps break up walls and prevent stalling games. But I also recognize that an RNG mechanic in a game that's supposed to be all about strategy and calculation is frustrating. So I'm open to hearing feedback on how the luck mechanic could be improved. One change I definitely want to make is to let players view the exact HP of a unit by hovering over it. In case you aren't aware, units in Advanced Wars don't have 10 HP, they actually have 100, and HP is just shown in increments of 10. When you see a 7 HP tank, it could have anywhere between 70 to 79 HP left, meaning that you have to take a bit of a gamble when it comes to luck damage whether or not you'll shave off an extra point of HP, which can be crucial in some matches. In the original games, you could actually view a unit's rough HP remaining by turning on animations and simply looking at the state of the HP bar, as it would give you some hint of where the unit was HP-wise. So I think allowing players to view exact HP is a good mechanic. But as for what I'll do with luck, I'll just say it's up in the air for now. The easiest thing to do would probably be to copy it over as it is, but I'm willing to hear people's arguments both for and against it. As for all the other weird gimmicky mechanics, such as terrain stars being reduced by HP and the like, I plan to copy over most of them unless I find a good reason not to. The idea of this game is to copy Advanced Wars as closely as possible, while only deviating in the areas where it is absolutely necessary. Essentially, I want to create Advanced Wars Plus with better balance. The most important part to me is how this game feels and looks. There are many Advanced Wars clones out there that try hard to recreate the style, but I find that a lot of them are lacking. They just don't look good, and this will be a core focus for me when I decide to go forward with this project. I want this game to be something that, when you look at it, you immediately get the Advanced Wars feeling, and you say, wow, that's a good looking game, I want to try it for myself. And I will keep looking for talented people until I can find someone who shares that vision. I understand that this might take a while, and that the most challenging aspect will be the 2D spriting. But I also want to get an artist to draw proper COs, a musician to make great soundtracks, and maybe even make a single-player campaign if I can find someone to program a decent AI. As for the game itself, I plan for it to be free to play, no microtransactions or anything of the sort. Just a simple donate button where 100% of the proceedings go towards paying for online server costs. There might be achievements and custom skins which can be unlocked, but they will be purely cosmetic in nature. My biggest dream for this game is to foster a healthy online multiplayer scene. I want a global league similar to the one on Advanced Wars by Web, where players fight for MMR, and with different leagues depending on player skill. You'll start off in the E rank league and gradually advance your way to D rank, C rank, B rank, A rank, and ultimately S rank for the top players.
I want a scoreboard on the front page of the game, which shows who the best players in the world are. I want to have customizable profiles where players can link to their social media accounts like Discord if they so wish. I want a live chat for both players that they can talk to each other in, though with an option to disable it for players who find it distracting or just don't want to chat. I want to have automated tournaments that start every month, which players can sign up for with the press of a button. I even want players to have the ability to create their own tournaments if they so wish. I'd also love for people to make clans with clan names, and of course I want a rated live league where people can duke it out in real time. I also want to have a mechanic similar to Advance Wars by Web's Move Planner, where you can move units around to plan out your play. But I also want a freelance mode, where you can literally play your turn as if you were playing normally, but with the option to reset. Obviously, this would not allow you to do things like scout out in Fog of War, and of course, if I choose to import luck values, then you'd have an option to toggle that on and off. But I think a mode that lets you play your turn in advance before actually playing it would be incredible for competitive play. In a similar vein, I'd also love a feature that lets people pre-move their turns, similar to what you can do in chess. The first few turns of an Advance Wars match is usually just you doing a pre-planned opener anyway, so having the option to just preset a bunch of moves for the first 5 days or so would be pretty damn cool. These features would obviously take a lot of work to make, but I believe they would be incredibly cool for a game such as this. There's no sugarcoating this. If I do decide to go down this route and make this game, I have pretty huge expectations for it. And I understand that some of you watching this video may shake your heads and think, man, that guy is just way too ambitious, I don't want to work with him, and that's fine. I wouldn't want to make this game in the first place unless I thought it would be a great one. And that means that I have my expectations set incredibly high. There are many Advance Wars clones out there, and they're good in their own ways, but that's not what I want to do. I don't want to just create an Advance Wars game. I want to create the Advance Wars game. So if you think you have what it takes, please send me a mail at mangsmemes@gmail.com, introduce yourself, tell me a little bit about what you do, and show me a resume if you have one. I would love to hear from you. And for the rest of you who are not developers, you can still contribute to this game by leaving a comment with some detailed feedback. I want you to go back and give this video another listen and just go over every single thing I've said and see if there's anything that you can scrutinize. Are there any mechanics you think should be changed? Do you think I should stay very faithful to the game, or should I deviate away from it? I would absolutely love to hear your opinions, and if you see some really good feedback, give it a thumbs up to help increase its visibility. Thank you so much for listening to my TED Talk about my new Advance Wars game. My name is Sven Mengs, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.